Dr. Duane Taylor, of course, needs no introduction. You can see his resume speaks for itself. He gave an outstanding talk at the NMA's meeting. And I know a lot of us couldn't make it due to travel restrictions and other reasons. So I thought it would be great to have our first grand rounds for this year, this academic year, for lack of a better word, to be the same grand rounds or the same talk he gave at that meeting. And so I'm going to allow Dr. Taylor to just take it away. Thank you, everyone. I'll be paying attention to the chat if you have any questions.
Well, I want to say hello to everyone, and it is always a pleasure and an honor to speak to this group they were so important to my development as a resident and onward. And so, as you know, I'm going to be talking about leadership, and I give all the credit for the foundation of my leadership in our specialty to the Harry Barnes Society, because it was an incredible sort of like proving ground and an opportunity for me to be put in the positions that I was put in as I moved forward. So with that, I want to start. This is a little bit about some of the things that I've done. And I think, probably most of you know that I was the past president of our academy. And that's probably the pinnacle of my leadership that I've had the opportunity to experience. I've had nothing to disclose. And hopefully at the end of this presentation, you'll be able to have an understanding of how leadership made its way into my life and consider how it might present itself for you as an option, opportunity, or obligation. Have you considered opportunities which present themselves in your personal or professional life as an otolaryngologist, our academy, your institution, group, or community, and when and how to step in? And I want you to come away with some strategies for becoming an effective leader, and also get a sense for how you might serve and utilize your leadership to increase underrepresented minorities in the specialty and support the existing ones. So we talk about leaders in a general way. There are different types of leaders. You can talk about tactical leaders that focus on solving straightforward problems with operations-oriented expertise. Strategic leaders that are very future-focused with an ability to maintain a specific vision while forecasting industry and market trends. And transformational leaders that focus less on making decisions or establishing strategic plans and more on facilitating organizational collaboration that can help drive a vision forward. Now, transformational leaders, they know how to encourage, inspire, and motivate others to perform in ways that create meaningful change. And the result is an engaged workforce that is empowered to innovate and help shape an organization's future success. And I want to say that, this term has become very, very, I won't say cliche, but I'll say very relevant right now. I think all aspects of society are using it, and it really encompasses just what is stated in these two sentences. So your decision to take on a leadership role, it can be short-term or long-term, but ultimately, be clear on your intentions when you take it on. You want to change or help shape the culture of an organization, introduce new ideas and innovation, inspire and motivate others to follow your path. And as someone I recently was looking at their blog, it said, place value in your growth as well. So some of the things that I've thought about as I was moving along this journey was, why do you want to be a leader? What are your expectations? Can you make a difference? Do you have the time? What are the time requirements? Have you asked other leaders about their experience? And do you have the support at home, office, and among your colleagues? What's been your prior service in the organization? It's okay to be interested in just wanting more information as you ponder this path. As physicians, we can all be seen as taking a leadership in some capacity as we engage in the care and management of our patients. Always decisions must be made, a plan and a path of care considered and developed, and consensus and collaboration with the patient and other parts of the care team are always required. And whenever I engage a patient, I always engage them with the statement in mind that we are a team trying to get to a common goal of improving your health or preventing ill health. The opportunities are what? To help others, your community, society, and institutional organization, personal growth, leading by example, becoming a mentor, becoming a critical part of developing other future leaders, promotion of income, power to change, make a difference, and to turn vision and ideas into tangible solutions. Some of the options: taking on or wanting to become a leader should always be viewed in some capacity as an option. It's a matter of choice, a door opening, a need to be filled that calls for a leader. But are you ready, willing, or interested in doing it? Leadership provides the opportunity to build bridges of understanding, to demonstrate how, by example, what can be during your tenure. And it allows you to establish a legacy or footprint you leave behind of sustainable accomplishments for future leaders. What are some of the motivators? As I have listed here: growth, status, improve a situation for yourself and others, best person for the job, desire to make a difference, passion, encouraged by other leaders, and even income. Just think about these things. Do you seek leadership, or does leadership find you? Are you prepared when the opportunity presents itself? And has it been assigned to you or recommended to you? So I'm gonna give you just a little bit about my journey as a leader. I always like to think of it as I started my leadership journey when I was about the age of 12. I was in the Scouts. I got my Eagle Scout, I think at that age, and it required me at that time, where most of the members of the Scout troop were older than me, and it required me to lead these members of my troop on a camping trip, most of whom were older than me, as a patrol leader. And it was cultivated by my family, role models, and mentors. A little bit more about me. I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland. I was always interested in different types of things as it pertained to maybe student government. In my senior year in high school, I was a page on Capitol Hill. I spent my last year of high school there. And it was my first exposure to the power of advocacy, sort of at the highest level firsthand. I then went into a 6-year BSMD program, internship in Texas, residency at King Drew out in LA, and I did a facial plastic and reconstructive surgery fellowship in Washington, D.C., where I stayed. Some of the things that I was involved in along that path, I was president of my student National Medical Association chapter. As a resident in California, they had the California Joint Council of Interns and Residents, which was basically like a union. And it was making sure that all departments had what they needed at your hospital and that the funds were available among the California hospitals. And then embarking on practice. My first initial practice setting I was involved in was a 700 physician multi-specialty managed care medical group, serving about 500,000 patients in the tri-state area. I was elected by physician shareholders to their board of directors, and also served as a community liaison for the District of Columbia, one of the jurisdictions that they were served, and asked to serve on a labor management physician partnership management team, which was really quite fascinating because I got a firsthand view of how, sort of labor functioned, and with all their representatives in that setting. This meant, nurses and medical technicians and that sort of thing that were involved with this large more managed care group. And at the same time, I stayed active in my local medical society in Washington, D.C., and served on their board of directors, and became a young physician section member of the AMA and served as the alternate delegate of the AMA representing the District of Columbia. And while I was at that meeting, I learned that how important it was that even if you weren't on a council that you were interested in, if you could attend as a guest, that was a great entree. You had a chance for people to get to know you. And so I attended what was at the time the Advisory Council on Minority Affairs, and would later become the section. And I was asked if I could attend the meeting as a guest, and the president of the AMA ended up appointing me as a young physician to that committee, and it subsequently became the Minority Affairs section with a number of people which you may have encountered or heard of, like Bill McDade, who's been very active in a lot of different areas. He was in that initial group that I was involved with, and Regina Benjamin, who later on became the board trustees on the board of trustees and became the Surgeon General. So there was an interest, a passion, and with that interest and passion, I was able to achieve some goals because it was something I was interested in. And subsequently, I started my own practice. Went out on my own, solo, because there were some things that I wanted to achieve and be able to shape and form on my own. And that was in 2006. And then subsequently, part of a founding member of what's now the 6 Centers for Advanced ENT Care, which is in the Maryland, DC, and Virginia area. And it's a physician-owned and run 60-member single specialty group spanning these areas. So let me just say that, when you decide to take on a leadership role, I brought up some of those things that are really important for you to consider and to take into consideration about your time and others' time, people who you are engaged with in whether it's your family, friendships, hobbies, other things that you're involved with. But the opportunity to lead local organized medicine, a major local organized medicine society, came when I was an employed physician with this large multi-specialty group. But and it was after I had been involved at a number of different levels. But at that time, I made the decision not to take that step because I realized it was not the right time, and for a variety of reasons. And I said, if there's an opportunity now, and I'm passionate about it and I'm interested, there'll be an opportunity later. And interestingly enough, several years later, after starting my own practice and having, really been a big proponent of making sure that you're engaged in organized medicine, whether it's local or nationally, I joined my local medical society. And the prior things that I had accomplished and done, they were already known throughout that area and among the society. And even though I was trying to be kind of low key and get my feet on the ground, and I was approached to become involved in leadership role, and eventually became the president of a 2,000 member county medical society, which is Montgomery County Medical Society, and also was the first African American of that medical society to lead that society. And then my academy leadership journey, was nominated and elected to serve as a governor, represented Otolaryngology section of the NMA by the Harry Barnes Society. And I was in that position for about, I want to say, over 10 years. And it enabled me to serve on many committees in the Board of Governors and to be in the company of many leaders who I admired, and they got an opportunity to know me and to know more about the Harry Barnes Society. Um, Eventually, I was appointed to a diversity task force. I was the inaugural chair of that diversity committee, and then invited as a guest of the board of directors. This committee was given a guest seat, and also was the recipient of a model committee award. I was elected to the board of directors, and then the chair of the Academy Wellness Task Force. I was asked to become that after my term had expired from the board of directors, as well as to become involved with the Future Practice Task Force. And it subsequently was my becoming president-elect of our academy. So one of the things I found that when you're leading without looking for it, leadership will sometimes find you. And that's the way I felt. I mean, I never embarked on a journey of saying, well, I want to be the president of the academy when I first became involved with the academy. But I did want to make a difference, and I did want to be able to have a seat at the table and to implement change. And with that came many past leaders who approached me about really encouraging me to become more involved at a higher level. And so it's important that when you think about the things that you have the opportunity to do, that you look at other people's paths and you put yourself in positions of being able to learn from their paths and to look at yourself. And I was chair of the diversity committee. Again, we received the model committee award, invited guests of the BOD, ran for the BOD, didn't win the first time, won the second go round. And then after that was up, I was asked to lead our initial wellness efforts as an academy, which, as you know, that was a big deal, and it still is. And then ran for president. So, and again, I believe the greatest impact came from leaders and mentors who called me or said to me face to face and said, you should consider a leadership position. And for those of you who are already in leadership positions, remember that, because that can make the difference in encouraging someone else to embark on a path or to take advantage of an opportunity, whether it's at a local level in your hospital or in your community, or whether it's in a level in the academy or subspecialty societies. All of those are opportunities. And for me, mentorship was critical. Receiving mentorship and giving back and telling someone who you believe has the potential to lead and lead well that they should consider stepping up. And it also means helping to cultivate their potential. So, of course, as I was going along this path, it was very important that I realized that if you want to implement change, you have to have a seat at the table. And part of that seat at the table for me came from my passion for making sure there was more diversity and inclusion, not only within our specialty and within our academy, but at even a level of getting students interested in our specialty, and most importantly, underrepresented minority students. And so again, you can never walk a road alone. And I really believe that there were so many leaders that were a part of my path going along, a part of that journey, I should say, that were so instrumental in me achieving that position that ultimately I was able to achieve. And when I went into my term as the academy president, I had these goals and visions of what I wanted to do. And part of that had to do with wellness, patient information and education, maximizing membership engagement. And guess what happened? The pandemic. First, I was, thrust into this, my first leadership position leading the academy and having to navigate the pandemic, and also having to enhance understanding of the concepts of social justice and having our specialty have a voice and have a stand in this area. And of course, you know, the pandemic, it did shine a big light on the areas of health disparities. And I felt very comfortable and empowered at that point in time to be able to speak what I believe should have been, the things that should have been spoken if you're going to get to a level in an organization like ours, and be able to make a difference. So for me, that was huge. And, you know, I felt like I was supported, and I know I was very strongly supported by the Harry Barnes Society, but I just felt like I was supported in those efforts. We had an incredible academy staff, and it was a big job, but it was one I wouldn't have traded for the world, having it behind me now. So, and as Martin Luther King said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenient, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And one of those things, when you look at achieving any kind of goal, you think about, well, why do you want to climb this mountain? Because it's there to make a difference, for growth, or to help others, or it can be all of the above. I ended my last, I had to write the article for the bulletin every month when I was the academy president, and my last article was the bridge over troubled waters, because we did have some troubled waters, but the bright light was there was a bridge, and we all worked together to make that bridge stay a bridge. So it's important, again, to understand the needs and to get to know those who you will lead. And the top things you like about the status quo and things you want to improve, and how you can affect change and what you can do to affect change. These are all things that I thought about and that I learned from other people who were in leadership positions. Know what your vision is and where is your support. It's always important to know how to engage and create collaborative action, coalition, and consensus building. And be willing to solicit ideas and listen to others. Acknowledge and compliment contributions and the accomplishments of others genuinely, authentically, and insist on mutual accountability. Your accessibility is important, and your transparency is important. And when you assemble a team, or you are leading a team, you should get concerned if everybody agrees with everything you said, okay? That's really important. You want people that push you and that question some things and that make you think sometimes out of the box. And that's why it's so important to have diversity in leadership teams. And a bridge to nowhere will be there if you neglect to have your tools in place and your support team in place and your people who will not always agree with you in place. And just because you're right does not mean I am wrong. You just haven't seen life from my side. Perspectives of everyone around the table are important. That's something that I was taught from a very young age, and you can learn something from everyone, and you always give everyone the respect that you expect. So when we talk about, again, leadership, the sweet spot of consensus, teamwork, alignment, and the clarity of vision allows the achievement of goals and getting the work done. So I also pondered about, well, what leaders I admired, who's inspired me? What are you passionate about? Where can you make a difference with ideas, innovation, enthusiasm? What motivates you? And those drawn to and successfully entering and matriculating through medicine, and even more so in our specialty, have had some leadership exposure or experience. Don't downplay that. You've had experience in leadership, in probably all levels if you've gotten to this point. And so I always look at it, did I find leadership or did leadership find me? Self-awareness is very important in how you react, emotion versus thoughtful consideration, and realizing the balance. And again, your interactions, you are a leader who people are going to be watching, and you'll impact others just as you were impacted by watching other leaders. And it's also important to look at things from the perspective of, it's not going to always be an easy road. There'll be barriers, there'll be obstacles. And sometimes if you can't get over the obstacles, sometimes you have to go through it. But an organization that truly values you will do everything they can to keep you. And understanding yourself and what's important to you will give clarity in leading others. So I always took that perspective of understanding and making sure I was comfortable with what was important to me and what I would like to see come out of my leadership involved in any organization. So it's also important that when you look at leadership and you talk about opportunities, that you understand your current time, work-life balance, priorities, whether it's academic promotion versus community leadership in medicine, and the specialty, hospital engagement, and administration. These are all opportunities at all levels: community leadership outside of medicine, advocacy, academic opportunities, institutional opportunities for training and mentoring. And again, we talked about the importance of mentoring and giving back. And the priorities. Always tried to keep in perspective the priorities in my life, and family and friendships, and that balance are all very important. And looking at it at the time and how the decision might affect, again, not only you, but also the others to whom you're closely connected. Again, I was involved in a large multi-specialty group, had some opportunities there. One of the other opportunities I had was working with I was on the Montgomery County Health Commission, and there was a specialty care committee, and that was one of the most impactful and the first really effective boards I ever served on. And it brought all the CEOs of all the hospitals in our county together to coordinate charitable care center distribution for uninsured patients. And before that time, I don't think the CEOs had ever sat down together, it really was it was something that I looked back on and I said, wow, now that I really felt like, a difference was made, and it was a tangible difference that we could all see. Another part of my journey was during my term as president, we set up a foundation that was dedicated to advancing the practice of medicine and improving population health. And one of the biggest initiatives was providing, and it was interesting, I had just been involved with our wellness task force, but it was involved with providing counseling for physicians who either felt like they had already experienced the burnout of medicine, or that needed to be connected with what they were going to before they would experience burnout. And we were able to raise a substantial amount of money so that physicians could have the opportunity to have 4 visits and be seen within a day or two in a totally anonymous way, with a psychologist or a certified social worker who was basically would help them if they needed it. And we have, as physicians, we have a hard time reaching out for help when we really need it. So that was it was a tangible sort of a accomplishment that came from my opportunity as a leader. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities within the academy. We have our board of governors, committees, sections, task forces. You have the opportunity to attend most of the open meetings. And so introduce yourself to the leaders, make yourself known on the available forums, talk to the existing and past leaders, and make Academy aware of your leadership in other societies, and also your involvement in other organizations that we collaborate with. Some of the positions, as you know, our esteemed past chair, esteemed chair Troy Woodard was of our board. He was the first African American chair of the board of governors, and that is a really, really powerful position when you're over all the grassroots organizations that kind of make up our academy. And so it's definitely something that I was proud to see him step into, or be elected into, I should say. Board of Governors, you can see how it's set up, different regions. So if you have an opportunity to be involved, whether it's within your region or through an organization, especially, get involved. They have an executive committee, and their membership open to all academy members to help promote advocacy and action. And again, advocacy is another opportunity for you on your local, state, or national level, on your societies. And this is sort of the breakdown of how the BOG is set up from that standpoint. And then we have our academy. We have president-elect, directors, secretary-treasurer, audit committee, nominating committee, and then the breakdown of the voting members, non-voting members, invited guests, and then other individuals who are part of our board, chairs of these different committees, and some of whom have voting rights, but they are all at the table. And as a non-voting member of the board, I felt like I was able to be as engaged as just anyone else that was at the table. And then our coordinator for advocacy, ex officio members, and our ethics committee chair. So I encourage you all to go to the Academy website, look at and review the list of committees. Of course, you're familiar with the sections. You can become involved in any of the sections. And if you decide to take a run at some of these things, don't give up if you don't get it the first time. You got to let people know you're interested, and if you're committed to serving and you don't win on an initial run or office, don't become discouraged. Stay engaged and run again or reapply. And remember, timing's sort of everything, and the priority at the time in your life is also important. And don't ignore personal or family obligations in making a decision to take on the role. And the influence of great leaders can transcend the boundaries of their profession. And these were some of those great leaders of our Harry Barnes Society, that many of whom I had the great honor and pleasure of knowing, and who were an integral part of my development. Some of the things that, again, we talked about: understanding yourself, the importance of integrity, being open to new ideas, valuing diversity, collaboration, and be clear to yourself what drives you and your values. some of the resources I just have that are here that I found very helpful. I've listed that were helpful for me. And with that, I will end and open up to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Duane, Dr. Taylor. That was really good. I'm glad I got to sit through it again. There is one, I have some questions too, but there's a question from the audience. It says, thank you, Dr. Taylor, for the engaging discussion. Leadership is a big topic in medicine. You mentioned some reasons why you turned down some opportunities. In light of more apparent burnout, can you please share more about your thought process in saying no to opportunities and finding comfort in knowing that more opportunities will arise later, or as you said, find you?
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting is I've talked to several different groups about leadership, and that is a resonating question, and it's almost always the first question I get because we're so driven as doctors, and we feel like we've got to do everything, and we want to. And there's a door open, you got to jump through it right away. But in this day and age, right now, I mean, it's very, very important that you don't burn yourself out, okay, and that you do pay attention to those other parts of your life that make you whole, that make you fulfilled as a person, and that don't leave out those individuals who are part of your life in the process on that journey. And so again, I looked and talked to other people. I looked at other people's experiences who were leaders, and I felt comfortable with myself that if I bypass this opportunity right now, even though it seemed like everything was leading toward that was the next step. I mean, it was important to me, and it was important to those who were important to me, that I considered all of those things, and that the opportunity will come again. And again, I think as a group, as a specialty, that we've got some pretty incredible individuals that have even gotten to the point of getting into our specialty, and they're a part of our specialty. And you'd be surprised, people will always be seeking you out. They can see you walk in your truth. They see you, and they see the things that you do, whether you're actively leading an organization or not. And your patients look to you as leaders as well. So I would say, give yourself that opportunity to carefully think through it, and think about yourself, your health, your well-being, your physical, emotional, your family, those who are important to you.
Dr. Myers says, thank you for your service and commitment.
Thank you.
So one of the other things that I guess it was a crisis, was the George Floyd protests that happened, I believe, in May of 2020. How, obviously, as an African American, I think most African Americans have some understanding of disparate policing, and that the notion that something like that could happen wasn't foreign to us. But this became a situation where everyone saw it, and you had protests all over the world. And I'm just curious, how did that next whammy affect your tenure as president?
Well, you know what?
Learned?
I think that's a good question, and it was a very integral part of my service, that when I was at that point of being able to impact and have a voice that everyone was sort of forced to listen to in our specialty, and also to share that with other specialties that I stepped up. As far as I'm concerned, my rise to that position was in part due to me not wanting to continue to sit on the board of governors and not have an impact about things that had to do with social justice or health equity and cultural competency. Part of that, part of when I became the chair of the diversity committee, and it was for people like Ron Coopersmith and Jim Denaney, and Dr. Miyamoto. I mean, that were very encouraging to saying when I proposed that we have, these mini seminars on some of these things that had never even been introduced, and so for me to get to the pinnacle of that leadership position in a situation like that and not feel like I could speak out, there was no question. And it was interesting because when all this was coming about, there were a lot of things going on in my head, and it was, and there were other organizations that were speaking out. We needed to be in the front though. We didn't want to be the last one to say, okay, well now every other specialty has said this is wrong. Are we going to wait? And, no, and you had your first African-American president. No, that's not going to happen. So, but I was so just so pleased at how our board and the support of everyone with the statement that I came out with. There was no intention to change it. And I spoke from my heart when I put it out there in terms of what was important. So yeah, it was a little tough road because, we have some means of platforms now where we have people from all over the country, some of whom, they had some differing opinions, and we're a slice of America, our specialty. We're not just all homogeneous in how we think, you know what I mean? But I was really proud of how our leadership team came together, and I'm not going to take all the credit, but I was at the helm at the time, and kind of dealing with that situation and enlightening and enhancing the perspectives of what we all need to have. And then we had that series of implicit bias videos that came out, I believe during, I think it was at the end of my term that I was involved with as well. And that was very key and critical as well.
So one of the things that comes up a lot is the idea of a minority tax. That if you are in leadership position, you often get pushed towards the DEI, so disparities. And then when they start talking, when leaders start talking about finance or strategic initiatives, minority voices aren't included. As
Right.
somebody who was included in those discussions, what advice do you have for those who are trying to, get beyond the minority tax?
Yeah, and I think that's a very important question, and that's not an unusual question either that I've been asked about. And I think it's really important to be sitting at the table. And in my situation, although I had served on many of the DOG committees, I got at the table because of the need to have more minorities there and my passion about that happening. And in turn, other things I was able to be on all those other committees and involved on, the audit committee and that sort of thing. But you also, again, you have to be someone who can bring other people together. You have to encourage some of those other people who are in your setting that may look like you, that for them to get involved, so you're not doing everything, and they don't have to all look like you either. They can be. There's plenty of allies of people that believe in the things that are important in making sure that you have diverse representation in all aspects of an organization that can be supportive. And so, but you know, there is a balance, okay? And you should know your threshold, and you should know your balance, and you should also know when you can help, you can look for people to help you instead of trying to shoulder that burden of being the one person that's trying to be the representative and do everything. So I would keep that in mind. And you know, with this day and age now, we've got this technology. You can pick up the phone anytime and talk to somebody about something that you haven't been through or that you're getting ready to go through, and you can talk to somebody who's been through it, and we can see each other like we're doing it right now. So,
All right, last question. Oh, somebody said something in the chat. I'll get to the, so aside from great advice of being present and building relationships with current leaders, how else can one build their own luck in finding sponsors who will recognize their potential or establish skills and promote them for opportunities? From my experience, who recognizes you is contingent on the individual doing the recognizing.
mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a very good question as well. And you know, if people don't know you, or you're not out there and you're not making yourself visible and known, and they don't hear you, then they can't support you or sponsor you. So you have to be involved and engaged in some way, again, to find those people, to be around those people that can help you, or that can encourage you, or that can that you can bounce ideas off of. And I, you know, I have been involved in a lot of different things before I was, you know, obviously president of the academy. But I really, I sought out people, not necessarily because I was intent on being a leader, but I sought out people who would be supportive of me in trying to affect change, positive change, and people who are positive. You know, not people that are tearing you down, people that, you know, are coming to you. And you'll find that, again, you lead by example. I mean, people see the things that you're trying to do, and they're going to find you, and they want to be with you. They want to be supportive of you. So, you know, again, like I said, you can sit in on a committee. I'm using this as an example. You can sit in on an academy committee and not be on it. And they see you're there, and you can speak up. It's like, wait a minute, you know, we want them to be on this committee. You know, I'm just using that as an example, but this can be in any kind of an organizational structure. And then, you know, the whole community, you know, being active in your community as a leader. I mean, it doesn't even have to be related to medicine. Everybody knows about you when you do things like that, especially when you're encouraging young people.
So I'm going to close it out, but I can't help but notice, I believe there's a picture of Muhammad Ali on your wall behind you. I'm listening to David Remnick's biography of Muhammad Ali. It's incredible, but I'm curious what do you think of Ali? Like, that's you know, you have that picture. Is that like your sports bar? Is that your office? Why that picture?
This is I'm in my man cave. In my basement, and that's Andy Warhol, Muhammad Ali, and then I've got Jackie Robinson, and it's a photograph of him on the other picture.
Interesting. There. So just close. I'm curious why those two.
Yeah,
you could have put Drew Pearson, you know, cowboy. I don't know who's a famous
commander. Well, you know, you have to think about both of these people. They stepped out of when it wasn't comfortable to step out and really try to open the door and leave a door open. And I learned so much from the things that they did, even when it wasn't popular, you know, that could make a difference. And that's what life is about for me. I mean, trying to make sure that I can make a difference for people that are coming behind me, you know. And I see so much that's already happened, and I'm so proud of all the accomplishments of things that have been done. But yeah, these are two people that, not the only, there are many, but these are two people that I truly admire and I have their pictures here, so it just reminds me of you can't sometimes you have to take a risk, and you have to do things that are going to make a difference regardless.
And
So
then there's one, I promise just close it out. Dr. Bergeron in the chat said, thank you for all that you continue to do. You have always approached each person with generosity, curiosity, interest, and engagement as you encourage all to participate. Would you be able to share your resources listed on the last slide?
oh
And
sure.
just quickly, the last, Suma Al-Zuhali, I believe that's how you say, I'm not familiar with Suma, I'm a Dr. Al-Zuhali. She asked a bunch of those questions about like, how do you, when you say no and all that, and I didn't acknowledge her, apologize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm gonna also, the talk is recorded, and so
Okay.
once I edit it, I put it on YouTube. So Dr. Bergeron will be able to get it like a link at some point as well.
And Dr. Johnson, a highlight for me was when we had that meeting and I got to hear Mr. Bobby Seale. That was
Okay.
wow. That was
He
something.
turned 86 on Sunday, I think.
That was a highlight for me. I
86
even
years old.
got to
Wow.
interact with him briefly.
So I don't know. Maybe we can bring him to New Orleans next year. If we'll try to swing it. All right. Any other announcements or things you want to put in the chat before I close things out? Again, thank you so much, Dr. Taylor. This was wonderful. And again, we're going to meet next month. It'll go back to our usual time, which is the second Tuesday of the month, starting 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, it'll be a business meeting. It should be relatively short. And then, like I said,